Hello, Heights Church. It's Pastor Tim, and I get to continue the thread in this week's Devo of the word restoration. Now, a lot of times when we think of the word restoration, we think of something being brought from one point of maybe breakdown or dysfunction or decay back to original condition, or even better. I have seen a lot of old cars that have been restored, and when in that process of restoration, they actually make it a better car. They upgrade some things, and that's all true. And there are so many biblical principles to that idea that when God is restoring us, He actually makes us better than we were before. He gives us new skills, new understanding. He gives us gifts and all these different things. And so many times we see that during the restoration process, at the finished product of the process, we actually are better than we were before. But I do want to talk about something that gets missed a lot when we talk about restoration, and that's the process of restoration. And sometimes we are so excited or so eager or impatient during the process because we just want to get to the end result. And why wouldn't we? Because that's kind of like entering the end zone or scoring a goal. I mean, that's the final thing. We have arrived, and so we focus on that. But we cannot miss out on the process of restoration. And here's why. Here's what I know. Over the last couple of years, many years of my life, I have done all kinds of restoration projects in and around the house. We've redone the inside of the house. We have restored our backyard into something different of the Jeep. But one of the biggest things I did was last year was buy an old pop-up tent trailer, and it needed a lot of work. And when we opened it up, it was in decent shape. There was some, as they say, the bones were good. It had the frame and the majors were good, but it just needed to be updated and restored so that we could use it. And we spent the next couple of months, my sons and I, tearing it apart, breaking it down, and then rebuilding or restoring the inside interior so it was enjoyable. And I just want you to know that the finished product was great, and actually it was better than we had hoped for. But here's the thing. During the process, as I'm working with my sons, here's what was happening. Well, Dad, we can just do, and let's just do that, or let's just, that's good enough. And I had to keep reminding them, no. Let's do it right. Let's take our time, and here's why. And I could point out to them why we wanted to fix or restore things a certain way so that it was done right. And here's what they're learning. And here's what I learn every time I take on a project is I'm learning about what works and what makes it better and why I need to do it a certain way. And not instead of just running through it just to get to the end, I'm learning in the process. Because some of the biggest lessons when we are being restored is the process. There are things in the process that help us in the future. Here's an example. The story of David. We all know, hopefully, the story of King David, and he was anointed to be king when he was very little, but yet he wasn't the king. The people wanted Saul to be king. But so here's King David, and where we see this, where we know King David the most is this event that happened with Goliath. And we all know what happens. Goliath is calling out the Israelite army, and he's insulting them, and nobody wants to fight Goliath. Well, because one, he's 9 feet tall. See, my camera doesn't even go that high. It's 9 feet tall, and he's a big, muscular guy. He literally has to have another guy in front of him to carry his shield. That's how big he is. And they were scared to death. But yet here comes young David, a boy, a shepherd boy, comes in, and he speaks to the king, and he basically says, I'm willing to go. Why do you think that is? Why do you think David was ready in that moment? It's because of this one point. Let me read this point to you. David was prepared for that moment because of years of practice, because of the process that he had been through in his life. Matter of fact, let me read this to you. This comes out of 1 Samuel 17, 32 through 37. Here's what it says. It says, "And David said to Saul, 'Let no man's heart fail him. Your servant will go and fight the Philistine.' And Saul said to David, 'You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him. You are but a youth. You are young. You are not prepared,'" however you want to say it. "And he has been a man of war from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant," I love this, "your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And when there came a lion or a bear and he took a lamb from the flock, I went after him and I struck him and delivered it out of his mouth. And if he rose up against me again, I caught him by the beard and I struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be just like one of them, for he has defiled the armies of the living God." See, David had lived a life of trusting God and doing the things necessary to be ready for that moment. And that process of a restoration, sometimes we just want to get to the end. But let's keep our eyes open as God is working in us and restoring us in different areas of our life, because he is teaching us and molding us and strengthening us for things that may happen in the future that we don't even know are coming. Remember, God's script, his story for you and for me, his heart for you and for me is what's going to happen. And so we want to be ready for that. We want to be ready for that. So restoration, being restored to something new, being returned to the owner as we are moving towards back to relationship with God, when we are being made new and refreshed. Don't forget the process, because it is the process that will prepare you for spiritual success. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.